Honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour and privilege to rise again over 40 times now to stand up for small businesses, the unsung heroes of the COVID-19 pandemic that closed their doors to protect public health. Mr. Speaker, we were glad to see the government finally fix their flawed-designed, broken commercial rent program that was landlord-driven to make it tenant-driven. But, Mr. Speaker, we're extremely disappointed that they won't backdate it to April 1st, Mr. Speaker. Many of those businesses are in arrears with their landlord or riddled in debt, and yet the government refuses to go backward, even though they know that most of those businesses are in deep trouble, especially with a second wave, Mr. Speaker. And the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Prime Minister said this government is just moving forward. Well, Mr. Speaker, that debt is moving forward with those small business owners that didn't get any help. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about some of the businesses that were completely left out, and that's startups, Mr. Speaker. There's a whole subset of businesses that did their part, started their business, and closed their doors for public health. So anyone who opened before or after March 1st or later, they were closed, their doors for public health, or they were ready to open post March 15th. They were prevented from any of the programs, Mr. Speaker. This is totally unacceptable, and I want to talk about a couple of them. Graham Heffy, who opened Black Hops Brewing, V2V, down in Langford. He's a veteran. Served in the Canadian military, used his life savings to open a for-profit social venture that part of the profits go to help veterans with PTSD. They've already donated $6,500, Mr. Speaker, but they have not got any help for the commercial rent program, for the wage subsidy. They haven't been able to access the loan program, Mr. Speaker, and they're looking at closing their doors and going bankrupt. They're in the middle of the second wave. They've closed their doors due to the public health order from Dr. Bonnie Henry to protect public health, and they are getting no help. Another constituent of mine, Lisa Jaster in Courtenay, she has Lost Faucet Sauna House. She opened in February 2020. She can't get the CEBA loan. She's paid thousands of dollars to contractors. She doesn't have a fighting chance without any support, Mr. Speaker. She's completely abandoned by this government. And, I'm thinking about my colleague from Victoria who's been fighting really hard for Peter Wood, who owns Bear and Joey Restaurant in Victoria. He put his life savings into developing this business. He opened in March. Now he's been doing takeout when that started. He's got 30 staff. Now they're in the second phase of the lockdown. They're paying $11,500 a month in rent. They can't get any help, Mr. Speaker. Nothing from this government. They've been abandoned, like many businesses across this country. So, Mr. Speaker, these businesses, they actually have the ability to demonstrate that they're genuine. They've invested in small business through presenting one of them or the following, like proof of loans and financing, proof of long-term leases, contracts for building and construction. They often demonstrate that the second wave that they're going to be impacted by, that they can compare revenue from one period to another, because they've been open, some of them, for several months now. But the winter months ahead, they've had to reduce capacity or close their doors. And, demonstrating post-2020 that they're operating at a loss and that they're not going to be able to keep their staff on. Mr. Speaker, the sense of urgency for these businesses couldn't be greater. Why is this government abandoning them? It's unfair, Mr. Speaker. These are businesses that have invested in our communities and our country. They're job creators, and this government needs to step to the plate. And we've got solutions. We want to work with the government. We hope they'll do something to support these small businesses.
And by video conference, the Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague for his intervention on behalf of small businesses in Canada. Look, if I can break from any prepared remarks for a moment, let me first extend my empathy to the business owners that are struggling that he's mentioned in his own community. He can rest assured that I'm having similar conversations with businesses and have been having them from the outset of this pandemic. But I do have to say the suggestion, implicitly or explicitly, that we have abandoned small businesses is disingenuous disingenuous in the extreme, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member knows that in order to help keep Canadians safe, we decided to make it more affordable for businesses to do the right thing and shut down or reduce traffic through their premises. Mr. Speaker, this includes Bill C9 that was just received royal assent a few days ago that extends the wage subsidy to next summer and importantly creates a new Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy. This is going to provide a 65% subsidy to business, up to 65% for businesses that have lost revenue as a result of this pandemic, and up to 90% with the additional lockdown support for those who've been ordered to close as a result of a public health order. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the wage subsidy, this is actually contributing directly to help 3.8 million Canadian workers stay on the payroll. It doesn't just help them keep getting paid, it helps their employers retain them and rehire them if they had to furlough them in order to make ends meet throughout this pandemic. We've advanced the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which self-employed people were eligible for, that's helped keep food on the table for 9 million Canadians. We've advanced the Canada Emergency Business Account to provide interest-free loans, partially forgivable loans, and we're now increasing that from $40,000 to $60,000, up to 20 of which will be forgivable. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we've done what we can to meet as many needs of as many businesses, and we've even established the Regional Recovery and Relief Fund for those businesses who didn't otherwise qualify for some of the supports that I've mentioned. While I appreciate fully that the honourable member has the best of intentions in trying to defend the small businesses in his community, I do not believe it is appropriate. In fact, I think it's ludicrous to suggest that our government has abandoned small businesses when we have launched more support for them than any other government in the history of our country. Mr. Speaker, small businesses should know that they have a friend in our government, that we have been there for them from day one of this pandemic, and we will be there for them until it is over.